Well, it's that time again. Favorite time of the year. You know, a lot of people always say, why do you look forward to this time in February every year? One, it comes right after one of the earliest parts of my spring. And hell, I know it's still winter, but it's my spring. And that is the Toronto Auto Show. I get it, Montreal, Detroit, CES, roll back in January. But for myself, going to Toronto is being close, seeing stuff that I like, and I usually go in the middle of the week when it's a little bit quieter. But about a week after I go to the show, one of my favorite pastimes of Canadian history comes out. And with that, I get something in the morning that keeps me going and also gives me a chance to win my own ride. Yeah, today, AutoLooks is going to be taking a look at one of my favorite pastimes that I've been going through since I started drinking coffee, the Roll Up the Rim from Tim Hortons. Welcome back to the AutoLooks podcast. I'm your host, as always, the doctor to the automotive industry, Mr. Everett J, coming to you from our host website at AutoLooks.net. If you haven't been there, stop by, check it out, read some of the reviews, check out some of the ratings, go to the Corporate Links website page, big or small. We have them all, car companies from around the globe, all available on one direct location. That is the AutoLooks.net website. The AutoLooks podcast is brought to you by Ecom Entertainment Group and distributed by Podbean.com. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email over at email@autolooks.net. So like I said in the beginning, it's just about spring. The groundhog has come out to tell us if we have an early spring or another 6 weeks of winter. Well, hate to break it to you, but no matter what, we're having 6 more weeks of winter because spring is 6 weeks away from when the groundhog sticks his head out of the ground. Yeah, we can have early spring, but as I say, living in Canada, we always have at least 2 springs and an early summer. And for myself, February always brings out that first early spring right around Family Day weekend. And for us, Family Day weekend always is a time you're supposed to spend time together. For myself, it's waiting for that date, that Wednesday between Family Day weekend and the weekend before Roll Up the Rim when I go to the auto show. Now, Roll Up the Rim is a contest where literally, when it started in 1986, you literally just rolled up the edge of your Tim Hortons coffee cup to see if you were a winner. And with that, you won multitude of different prizes. Now, cars eventually became one of the prizes that Tim Hortons would give out. And we're going to get to that a little later in this podcast about all the different cars that they'd given out and some of the lawsuits that had happened because of those automobiles that they were giving away. Not against Tim Hortons, but against people fighting over it. Then we get in the States, you got your Americanized monopoly, which is funny because Monopoly's not even an American game, of McDonald's. But in Canada, we drink over 9 billion cups of coffee every single year from Tim Hortons. Okay, that works out to almost, I think they did the calculation a couple of years ago, between 7 to 9 cups every single day. Now for myself, except for roll-up time, I'm lucky if I only have maybe like 3 or 4 of them in a week. So somebody out there is drinking a lot of coffee for myself. But when the average person gets like an extra large triple, you gotta remember when they're basing this off coffee cups, they're basing it off a small coffee cup. And for this one, they're basing it off of that. Now, Tim Hortons launched Roll Up the Rim in 1986 as an ingenious marketing strategy. It was the idea of Ron Bust to boost spring coffee sales, and has eventually evolved from its paper cup rims to a new digital app. And this year, 2026 is when this podcast came out, they're doing both the digital roll-up and the cup roll-up. After quite a bit of backlash from getting rid of the cup one, because when you bring the cup winner in for a coffee, you're allowed to substitute it. When you get it on the app, that's it. If it says only a medium coffee, you can't get a French vanilla. You can't get a mocha. You can't get an English toffee. You can't get a tea. You can't get a hot chocolate. Coffee only. So that pissed a lot of people off after decades of doing this. They're like, no, I got a Freddy donut. I'm bringing it out of getting an apple fritter, not just a donut. And some locations will be like nice enough to you to say, okay, yeah, we'll substitute that for a cookie instead because, not everybody wants a donut. So right now we're going to get into a little bit of history of the Tim Hortons franchise. Now, Tim Hortons was created in 1964 by none other than Northern Ontario's own Tim Horton himself. And if you didn't know this, Tim Horton, the hockey player, comes from Cochrane, Ontario. Ontario. Yes, he is a northern boy, just like James Cameron, the director, who comes from Kirkland Lake. Yeah, some of the biggest names to come out of this province are northern boys. And Tim Horton was one of them. Now, naturally, he had to move down south because there's no NHL teams north of Toronto. Well, really there is, because Ottawa's more north, Edmonton's more north, Calgary's more north, Vancouver's more north than Toronto. Every other NHL team in this country is more north than Toronto. But for himself living in this province, he had to move south. And the funny thing I like to bring up about Tim Horton is for a very short time before he was drafted into the NHL, essentially the AHL, because he went to the St. Michael's College for junior hockey, joining the Maple Leafs AHL farm team. Before that happened, he also lived in my hometown, Sudbury, Ontario. Yes, this northern boy came from Cochrane, went to Sudbury, which Sudbury actually holds the title of having the most NHL coaches from one major city. If you don't know about any of them, go back and check about some of them. About the Felinos, the Carlyles, there's a multitude of other ones. There's a lot of hockey in my hometown. Being a car person, that's kind of a, kick in the ass, but still kind of neat. He was drafted to the Maple Leafs in 1950 for a full season starting in 1952. He played with the Leafs until 1970, winning 4 Stanley Cups with them, including their last Stanley Cup. Okay, you have to remember, they haven't won the Cup since good old 1967. So 3 years after he won the Stanley Cup for the 4th time with the Maple Leafs. And the last time the Maple Leafs ever won the Stanley Cup is when Tim Horton played with them. He moved on and he got traded to the Rangers, then to Pittsburgh to the Penguins, and finally on to Buffalo. Now, during this time, between the 50s and into the 70s, you got to remember, NHL stars weren't paid like they are today. So they were all looking for other ways to earn extra money, especially in the offseason, because you weren't getting paid. They weren't making the millions they get paid today. So for himself, Tim Horton tried a whole multitude of different businesses. And along that, he included running a Studebaker dealership and a hamburger restaurant. Now, being that he was in Buffalo, and he also played for the Maple Leafs, living in Hamilton, Ontario was perfect, because essentially you're partway between where the Leafs play and the Buffalo Sabres play. So for him, it was a great spot. And that is where he started his very first Tim Hortons location in Hamilton, Ontario on Ottawa Street. Now, that current location is now the museum about Tim Hortons, but I was actually in the original restaurant when it existed years and years ago, and it was kind of cool to see the original sign out front. Now, Tim Horton didn't turn the restaurant into what it is today. That was a man by the name of Ron Joyce. Tim Horton died in a car accident on the QEW while driving his De Tomaso Pantera. Oh yeah, this homeboy drove an amazing supercar with the same engine that's underneath the hood of my Mustang, a 351 Cleveland, and a De Tomaso Pantera. Oh yeah, good old northern boy Tim Horton driving a Pantera. It was awesome. It was great. But unfortunately, he had just lost to his former team in Toronto. And he was on his way back to Buffalo. He was alone and lost control of his car just outside of St. Catharines, Ontario. Now, the story goes that he had stopped at the Tim Hortons office in Oakville, where his brother and Ron Joyce had noted that Tim had been drinking. He did not listen to them as they stated the fact that he shouldn't be driving. He lost to his former team and was headed home, so he was upset. But he stopped there for business purposes. He died from rolling his car and also being ejected from his amazing Pantera as he was not wearing a seatbelt on February 21st, 1974. If you really want to know something interesting, it is February 21st, 2026 is the date I am recording this episode. So I'm recording this episode just before roll-up starts, and on the same date that 52 years ago took Mr. Tim Horton away from us. Now, Horton owned that Pantera only because it was gifted to him by the Sabres general manager, Mulch, to entice him to stay on one more year with the Buffalo Sabres as he was considering going back to Toronto. But that would never come, as Tim would die in that horrific crash where he rolled his car nearly 6 times and was fully ejected from it. We lost a great Canadian that day, an amazing hockey player, and a man who had the idea to start a coffee and donut shop. Because what does everybody need to get them going in the morning? Coffee and donuts. And this is 1964. 1974, 10 years after he started Tim Hortons, he died. Now, after his death, his business partner, Ron Joyce, Hortons went on to buy the share of the Tim Hortons franchise from Tim's family. The story goes for $1 million and a Cadillac. Oh yeah, you got to throw that car bid in there. $1 million and a Cadillac. Now, the Hortons, especially his wife, would later sue Ron over the agreement in 1993, but would lose because it was seen well after that Tim had passed away that he made this deal. He didn't make it on his deathbed. He made it months after to buy it out. Sure, there was still grieving, but you still have to take into account business aspirations. And Ron gave them a deal and a Cadillac and took over the Tim Hortons franchise. Now, Ron pushed this business to what it had become today, building up from 40 locations in 1974 to over 4,600 Canadian retail locations in 2013. Now, 2013, 13 years ago, Ron Joyce finally stepped down from management of the Tim Hortons brand as Tim Hortons became part of Restaurant Incorporated, which also owns Burger King, Firehouse Subs, and Popeye's Chicken, and headquartered in none other than the original location of Tim Hortons' main corporation headquarters, Oakville, Ontario. So yes, America may be home of the Whopper, but Canada is home to the Whoppers board. Take that. Like, literally, look it up. Restaurant Brands Incorporated owns Tim Hortons and is Canadian situated. Today, like I said, they're part of the Restaurant Brands Incorporated. Now, they did have a partnership for expansion into the United States during the 90s and early 2000s with Wendy's. That partnership deal did still go and help Tim Hortons enter the American marketplace. Because up until literally the 90s, Tim Hortons barely existed outside of New York and Michigan in the United States. Now you can find Tim Hortons in over 20 countries worldwide, including India, the UAE, Great Britain, and the United States. But here's where things get interesting. And as we're talking about the cars of Roll Up the Rim and the Roll Up the Rim, remember, we had to give you the history of Tim Hortons. If you didn't know it, there's your history bit. Now, there's a history behind Roll Up the Rim. In 1985, the concept was born during a meeting between Tim Hortons marketing director, Ron Bierst, and a cup supplier deciding to print codes on the rims. And in 1986, the first Roll Up the Rim promotion launched, initially offering smaller prizes like Timbits to drive sales during the slower spring season. By the 1990s and into the 2010s, the contest grew, adding bigger prizes like cars from Toyota, Honda. Hell, early days was the Ford Mustang. And for a very short period of time that we don't like to remember, the Pontiac Aztek. Electronics, iPods and TVs, barbecues, cash, vacations, and eventually became a cultural phenomenon across Canada and now into the United States. Now, one of my favorite things happened back in the 90s. I believe it was 95 or 96, when a famous lawsuit between two friends over a cup that was found in the back of his car. The passenger in this said car was the friend who paid for the coffee, but he tossed his cup into the back of his friend's, the driver of the car, automobile. The friend later was cleaning out his vehicle and found the winning cup for a brand new Mustang. His friend said, no, wait a minute. I bought the coffees. That's my car. And they got into a lawsuit. Essentially, the law legally ruled in favor of the driver as the product was deemed garbage as it was thrown away. Just like if you find a winning cup on the street, it's considered garbage. Somebody threw it away. It doesn't matter. It's part of the finders keepers law was used. When you put your trash off the edge of your property, it's up for grabs. It's similar to being able to film your house in a public space. If you didn't know this, they can literally, AC Nielsen, the company that does statistics, could figure out how many times you go into and out of your house by requesting rights to put a camera on public property across from your house to videotape it. Perfectly legal. This falls into the finders keepers of trash. His friend may have bought it. Even if he had the receipt to prove that he bought it, he threw it away, which means it was garbage. Now, he seems to think he didn't throw it away. He just forgot it. But essentially, his friend still got to keep the car. Now, this also happened again in 2006 when two girls found a winning cup in the garbage of their school. The families of both girls fought over the winning car, over who found it. Because one of them found the cup, the other one rolled it up. Eventually, awarded by Tim Hortons to the girl who found the cup. So the girl who found it, she didn't technically roll it up. She found it. And she and her family got the key. At that point in time, in 2006, was a Toyota RAV4 valued at $32,000. That's it. They were fighting over a $32,000 car. Like, really? 2009, a controversy arose when a painter won a prize that Tim Hortons claimed was a fraud, highlighting early issues with prize verifications. 2014, Tim Hortons celebrated 50 years of the Tim Hortons restaurant. 50 years. But you have to remember, what year did Tim Hortons come out? 1964. What also came out in 1964? The original pony car, the Mustang. So for myself, knowing that Ford had been a sponsor of the Roll Up the Rim for so many years during the 90s, I originally thought, oh, they're going to jump all over this. Ford of Canada is going to jump all over Roll Up the Rim and give away 50th anniversary Ford Mustangs with the 50th anniversary Tim Hortons Roll Up the Rim. Now, they didn't, because Tim Hortons at this point in time was tied into Toyota. They gave away a Camry for the 50th anniversary of Tim Hortons, not a Mustang. Like, come on. That was a perfect ad campaign, a major lost opportunity for them. Remember what we said in our automotive marketing, a lost opportunity for perfect marketing has been had by so many different automotive corporations? Ford of Canada could have literally won the day by increasing its appeal of the Mustang to coffee drinkers and Canadians alike by promoting the 50th anniversary of the Mustang with Canada's #1 restaurant, Tim Hortons, on their 50th anniversary. It was the stupidest lost opportunity ever to come about in restaurant history in this country. But by 2019, they were facing declining engagement and environmental concern. Now, I remember hearing about this environmental concern thing with Roll Up the Rim because the amount of coffee cups that extra people buy and they get thrown out into the waste. When essentially, even in 2019, you were able to put your coffee cup in the green bin because it was biodegradable. Okay? But these people were Canadian journalists fighting Tim Hortons. Meanwhile, McDonald's monopoly program did the exact same thing, but created more garbage because you had to buy more to get more. But nobody ever pinpointed on that. They just went after a national icon. Let's not go after the American counterpart who's dirtying up our country. Let's go after a national icon. Seriously, in the back of my head when I read this article, I was like, fuck off. Like, seriously, go after McDonald's. Leave our icon alone. But that wasn't the first time, because a year later, during 2020 and COVID, the promotion went fully digital, eliminating physical rims and becoming the Roll Up the Rim, fully tracked by the app. This alienated tons of people. You have to remember, my in-laws don't own a phone. They don't have an app. So what's the point of them going to Tim Hortons? They can't roll it up or win anything. And it really stirred the pot as the digital version cut out customers from this market. You have to remember, Tim Hortons still has an older clientele in our country, and some of who don't own phones. My in-laws were one of them. That's why my in-laws switched to going to McDonald's only, especially for coffee now. My father-in-law does not drink Tim Hortons coffee anymore. If he goes out and gets his cheap ass out to buy a coffee, it's always McDonald's because they have physical cups. And when they do the Monopoly game, it has physical attributes to it. Doesn't need an app, even though he's got a tablet and can put the app on that. So they've completely alienated him. Sure, it streamlined the prizes, but that also pissed people off. Like I said to myself, when it said you won a coffee, you only won a coffee. That's it. Coffee. Coffee. I couldn't substitute for a hot chocolate, a mocha, French vanilla, nothing. Doesn't even matter if I won it on a French vanilla. If it's a coffee, that's it. You can't substitute. If it was a donut, you can't get a donut. This pissed a lot of us off. So backlash from the customers who are constantly pushing against this. By 2024, Tim Hortons finally brought back the physical rims for limited runs. In 2024, when they brought them back after the whole COVID fiasco thing, they brought them back and allowed you to roll the cup up. But 2024, the first year they did it, within 1 week, they ran out of roll-up cups. They went that quick. They only printed so many of them. And after that, fully digital. In 2025, they brought back even more of them. But by the last 2 weeks, fully digital. 2026, they've released the statement that roll-up is going to be on both cups and digital for the whole time, which means they are finally going after every part of the market, including the older generation who still stands up for them and drinks their coffee every day. Seriously, if you want to go out and sit down with a retiree and learn their life story, go to a Tim Hortons at about 6 o'clock in the morning. You'll learn tons about them. You can literally go into any Tim Hortons and you'll find a group of them sitting around with one coffee for about 3 to 6 hours, not joking about that one, chatting about every single thing in the world, for after which they just go home and watch TV. I know my dad used to do this too. But you could sit down with them, have a chat, listen to their stories, listen to what they have to say. It's a communal place that brings people together. Tim Hortons, it's more than just coffee and donuts. Now for that, like I said, we have to get into the automobiles, because this is the cars of Roll Up the Rim. And I get it, we've been going on for over 20 minutes about just Tim Hortons and the roll-up thing. But you have to understand that the cars are just the biggest prize of the Roll Up the Rim franchise. Starting off in the early days with the Ford Mustang. For nearly the first decade, they had Mustangs that they gave away. And that famous one, I believe, like I said, it was 95 or 96 when they had the first lawsuit go on. It was over a Mustang. Now, I get it. Back then, fighting over a Mustang. Not like 2006, fighting over a RAV4. I get it. It was a family. They wanted a new family vehicle. But after the Mustang, they moved on to the most butt-ugly thing. And I swear it's just because Pontiac couldn't sell the damn thing, so they were just giving them away. A Pontiac Aztek. Yeah, they did that for a while. Then they had the Torrent. Then they got into the Toyota Camrys, the Corollas, the RAV4s, the Matrix. In 2009 only, they did a Toyota Venza, being one of the most expensive vehicles they ever gave away. From then, they moved on to the Honda Civics and had those for a while, both sedans and coupes. Then on to the Wranglers, the Cherokees, the Compass. Hell, now they're doing Volkswagen in the Canadian market. So it was a Tiguan, a Taos, an ID Buzz, and last year, a Volkswagen ID4, getting fully electric. I prefer to have what the Americans get, because on the American roll-up, they were able to get a Ford Bronco. Like, come on, you guys used to give away a Wrangler in Canada. Now we're getting an ID Buzz. Fuck that, I want a Bronco. Like, come on. So even the Americans get to join us with our favorite pastime from Tim Hortons, rolling up the rim for a chance to win a brand new car. Next to that, the only other transportation they give away besides getting on a plane and going on a vacation, they've given away bikes and side-by-sides as well. Hell, they had snow machines way back in the day. And one of my favorite things, I actually witnessed somebody win in front of me. Not my dad, one of his friends won a barbecue right in front of us. I also actually watched one of his friends win a bike. Most I ever got was like a coffee or donut. I've never won anything bigger than a coffee or donut from the Tim Hortons. Roll Up the Rim. And trust me, when the promotion is out, it's out for over a month. I go nearly every single day and at least get one coffee, one chance. Because I want to take that chance to win a brand new car. Even if it's a crappy Volkswagen ID4 that I don't even want, I want that chance. And I want to win that car. I'd prefer to go back to the 90s and win a Mustang. Even though those were like the Pinto-based Mustangs, not like today, or even earlier years, there was still a Mustang. How besides the Mustang, the only other two-door they ever had was the Civic Coupe. Even the Wranglers were four-doors. So a Civic Coupe and a Mustang, the only two doors that you could ever win. The Aztek, the only trucking model. The ID Buzz, the only minivan. Tim Hortons has given away tons of prizes, millions upon millions of prizes across both Canada and the United States with the Roll Up the Rim. Mustangs were the biggest thing in the early days. They lost the opportunity for their 50th anniversary with the 50th anniversary Mustang. I'm sorry, but you really fucked up on that one, Tim Hortons. Really. You should have just told Toyota, look, we'll give your car away as a secondary prize, but we want to give away, let's say we're going to give away 5 chances to win a 50th anniversary Shelby Mustang to celebrate our 50th anniversary. That would have been even better, but they didn't. And they really needed to. So as you go out there and you stop by your Tim Hortons, whether it be drive-through or you walk in and you get your coffee on Roll Up the Rim Day, and you sit down, and once you finish it, you get to enjoy rolling up the physical rim to see if you won a brand new car. After that, you can put the code into your phone, roll it up. Actually, you don't even need to use the code, because there you get points with Tim Hortons. Trust me, I get enough points that at least every 2 or 3 months, I get a free sandwich, which is great. I always have those days at work that I forget to bring a good lunch and could use a good Tim Hortons sandwich. It's not just a fast food restaurant. It's a fast food restaurant that every February and March gives us that joy that goes along with getting our early morning coffee. It gives us that ability to get a brand new car while we're in our car in the morning. And from a man who died driving a De Tomaso Pantera, who ran a Studebaker dealership and built a massive empire off of his name, Tim Hortons. It's not just about coffee and donuts. It's about so much more. So if you like this podcast, please like, share, or comment about it on any major social feeds or streaming sites that you've found the AutoLooks podcast on. Like us, share us, comment about us. Tell us what you have won through the Tim Hortons Roll Up the Rim prizes. Like I said, I've never really won anything besides coffee and donuts, ever. I won a set of headphones from Monopoly once. Besides that, I haven't won anything else. Actually, I didn't win headphones with my father-in-law. I won a 1-year subscription to like a workout application. Trust me, I know so much about it. Can you tell? But besides that, I've never won anything great, but I still do it every single year because it gives me a reason to go and purchase a cup of coffee. It boosts their sales, and I know they're making more money off of me every single year because of it. But you know what? I don't care. To have that little chance of winning a brand new car, a side-by-side, a television, now, in some cases a PS5, a trip, a bike, or even a barbecue. I'll take that chance. And if I don't win, I still get a coffee out of it. So I still get that morning pick-me-up that everybody needs on the way to work. And after you've liked us, after you've shared this, after you've told Tim Hortons what your favorite car was from the Roll Up the Rim contest, stop by the website, read some of the reviews, check out some of the ratings, go to the Corporate Links website page, big or small, we have them all, car companies from around the globe, all available in one direct location. That is the AutoLooks.net Corporate Links website tab at the top of the page. The AutoLooks podcast is brought to you by Ecom Entertainment Group, distributed by Podbean.com. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email over at email@AutoLooks.net. So for myself, Everett J, the AutoLooks team here, Ecom Entertainment, and Podbean.com, strap yourself in for this one fun, wild ride that this cup of coffee and its roll is going to give us.